The liberation tigers of Tamil Elam are fighting for an independent ethnic Tamil homeland in the north and northeast of the island.
The origin of the problem. As we said last week, the so-called national problem cannot be solved as we have not formulated the problem correctly. The problem, whatever it is called, began in the 18th century with the Dutch importing agricultural laborers from South India for work in their tobacco cultivation. These people found home not only in Jaffna, but in places such as Natal in South Africa. They were called Velalos in Jaffna as well as in Natal, and were agricultural laborers as shown by the records in Natal. Though there were some Tamils in the Arya Chakravarti kingdom in Jaffna, the Tamil Velalos imported from India soon became the majority, bypassing not only the Tamils who were living in Jaffna after the 12th century, but the Senalas and the Malayalam-speaking Vilakaras who had been living there. The Velalos, though, were not happy with Jaffna and went back to their places of origin in India after the harvest. In 1707, the Dutch, in order to prevent this exodus, codified the Thessaloniki law, which happens to be a Muslim law in South India as shown by late Mr. Gamini Rayagul, which encouraged the Velalos to stay or to keep their land among the relatives. More details could be found in An Introduction to Tamil Racism in Sri Lanka, which would be soon available online in the website www.kalaya.org. of the Chunthana Parshaldaya. However, those who remained in Jaffna soon formed into a so-called high caste, relegating the inhabitants who were there into the so-called low castes. As we mentioned last week, the imported agricultural laborers became the farmers, under the auspices of the Dutch, while the farmers, Govayas, who were there became low caste, Kovayers. The Dutch were interested in occupying the land that was given on lease by the Sinhala king living in Kandy or Mahanawara under the Treaty of 1689. It has to be emphasized that the Vadugas were Sinhala kings. The king would have belonged to the Vaduga clan that lived originally in Telugu-speaking Andhra Pradesh before coming to Sri Lanka through matrimonial links from Madurai. They were referred to as Malabars and spoke Telugu, or a language that was close to Telugu but probably with a flavor of Tamil. The language spoken by the Vadugas was referred to by the Sinhalas as Andhradamala, or Andhradamala as pronounced by the ordinary Sinhalas, who had no liking for the Mahaprana that describes the essential characteristics of the language. Though the king belonged to the Vaduga clan, he was the king of the Sinhalas, and he reigned over the Sinhala nation-state that was established by the king Pandu Ukabaya. There may be pundits who would like to think that nation-states were formed for the first time in Europe, but what happened during the period of the King Pandu Ukabaya was not precedential in the history, and I would like to come back to this point sometime later. What I am interested here is to show that a kingdom is not determined by the ethnicity, or the religion, or the caste of the king, or the queen, but by the character of the kingdom. The Sinhala kingdom did not change in character after it was established by King Pandu Ukabaya, though there were kings from Maurya and Lambakarna clans, Vanshas, who ruled the country. They were all referred to as Sinhala kings, and there is no reason why the Vaduga kings should not be called Sinhala kings, though the Vadugas belong to a different clan. The English throne is referred to as such irrespective of the ethnicity of the king or the queen. Tudor, Stuart and Hanover kings have ruled or pretended to rule the English, British kingdom, but the throne continued to be referred to as the English throne. Some pundits keep on repeating that Vaduga kings ruled over a Tamil kingdom even after pointing out these facts, as either they do not have the capacity to learn, or they want to mislead the entire world with the connivance of the British, who should be more familiar with the origins of Ms. Elizabeth Windsor and Mr. Philip Mountbatten, who presently pretend to rule Britain. The Sinhala nation-state was different from the kingdoms in Dambadiva or Bharat, which could be called clannish states or Vanchika Rajya. We refer to Chera, Pallaviya, Chola, Maurya, Pallava, Kosala, Likavi states or kingdoms, but not to Tamil state or any other state based on ethnicity. It is nothing but the arrogance of some Tamils and the ignorance of some Sinhalas, so-called open-minded balanced gang, often funded by the Ngos and Ingos, who want to pretend that they are intellectuals. That is revealed when they refer to the Vaduga kings as Tamil kings. The Dutch wanted a history, according to which the Sinhala king in Kandy was not the ruler of the entire country. Their agent in Jaffna got the help of the Velalos, and one of them came out with a history of Tamils in Sri Lanka going back to the Vijaya period. The book called Yalpana Vaipavamalai was the history book that was the precursor to Devanampiya the Sam stories and later so-called traditional homeland concept. It is none other than Professor Karthigesu Indrapala who described the above-mentioned book as mere poetry without any historical truth. However, the Jaffna Vellalas have been armed with this type of history from the beginning and behaved as if there were two nations, or two ethnic groups in two different areas in the country. To add fuel to this speculation, the Dutch divided the maritime provinces under their control, including the areas leased out to them by the Sinhala king, into 6 administrative districts and 3 judicial districts along the coast of Sri Lanka. It is ironical that it is one of the 3 administrative districts, and not even an administrative district, expanded into the interiors of the country, that was identified by the Tamils as their homeland by the time Cleghorn arrived in Colombo. The Vellalas had the upper hand not only in Jaffna, but in Colombo as well. To Cleghorn there were 2 ethnic groups, nations, in the island with distinct identities in 2 different areas. Though it has been proved that the so-called Cleghorn Minute was factually incorrect, the Tamil Vellalas clung to it to prove that there were 2 kingdoms with definite areas demarcated. The British divide and rule policy not only favored the minorities against the majorities in the colonies, but used the minorities against the majorities to their advantage, so that they could first weaken if not destroy the cultures of the majorities, and spread and establish the hegemony of the Western Judaic-Christian culture. In Sri Lanka, in order to do that, the British are still using the Tamil and Muslim cultures, though in essence they are against those cultures. The Westerners, though against the Muslim culture, would support the ethnic Albanian Muslims in Serbia and help them to form a separate state against the Greek Orthodox Serbians. Obama's Muslim connections, not to mention his sister's Buddhist connections, are bound to come up, and it is clear that he has support in the Caucasus, where the party organizers are dominant, but not in the primaries, where the more down-to-earth, meaning down to American soil, Democratic Americans could be found. The Republican supporters and the so-called independents would be even more down-to-earth, and Obama would have an uphill task in the coming months. It is clear that the British wanted to promote Ponnambalam Ramanathan as the leading citizen of the country, with his brother Erunakalam as the second in command. The Tamil leaders were encouraged to believe that they were the heir to the throne, and the Sinhalas, whose indigenous leaders had been destroyed in the 1817-18 and 1848 freedom struggles against the British, were supplied with subservient leaders. The Tamil Vellala elite, who had dreams of becoming the rulers of the country, following their success in Jaffna under both Dutch and British, after the British, never wanted to give the due share to the Sinhalas. The origin of the problem lies there, and not in the Citizenship Act or the Official Language Act.